2021 of the Andean Health Organization IPOLI to NANI Agreement. It's already 3.5 years of continuous learning since we started this webinar cycle in May 2020. Today, Thursday, February 9, 2024, we're pleased to present the webinar entitled New Challenges to Address Bullying. I want to start with a very important concept, positive peace, which is defined as the attitudes, institutions, and structures that create and maintain peaceful societies. It is essential for the well-being and health of people. It allows the rights to be respected, their needs to be met, and their capabilities to be enhanced. Therefore, from the Andean Health Organization IPOLI to NANI Agreement, we promote health as a bridge for peace. Children and adolescents are not the future, they are the present. Their development and well-being depends on what we do now in order to actively contribute to social and environmental justice that Horas Conju pursues. Reflections on these and other priorities relevant to health and well-being can be found in the monthly edition of the Notis Salud Andinas newsletter, available on the Andean Health Organization's webpage and in the Andean Integration Knowledge Showcase. We invite you to leave us your name, organization, and country from which you're joining us. The comment box of the Facebook chat or YouTube live chat. In the same space, you can leave your questions or send them via email to webinarhorasconju@gmail.com. To access the certificate of attendance to this webinar, as usual, you must fill out a short survey and leave your data in the fixed link that are in the Facebook or YouTube live chat. Please remember to verify that your email is spelled correctly. This webinar has the following dynamics. We will start with the institutional greeting, followed by the keynote presentations, and then start the dialogues from the questions left by our participants in the different platforms. To begin this important day, I give the floor to Dr. Maria del Carmen Calle, Executive Secretary of the Horas Conju, who will give the welcome and institutional greeting. Go ahead, Dr. Calle. Thank you so much, Danitza and Ruby. Well, bullying is a type of violence that occurs with intent, malice, reiteration, and greater power on part of the aggressor. Can you imagine constantly thinking about avoiding certain spaces or scenarios and modifying your daily and recreational activities just to avoid aggression? This is a common discomfort in bullying victims, for whom bullying becomes harmful to their health. Multiple scientific evidence proves that bullying impairs psychosocial, social, physical, and educational development. In addition, according to the World Health Organization, bullying has the potential to affect neurodevelopment, as well as the endocrine, circulatory, and immune systems. For example, increased risk of depression, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and HIV. According to UNESCO, in 2023, 1 in 3 students has suffered from bullying. Focusing on our area, according to the international NGO Bullying Without Borders, by 2022, between 20 and 50% of elementary school students suffer from bullying in the Andean countries of Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela. One type of bullying that has been on the rise in recent years is cyberbullying. This is defined by expert Samir Hinduja, whom we're going to listen later in this seminar, and Justin Patchin, as deliberate and repeated harm inflicted through the use of computers, cell phones, and other electronic devices. As a problem mediated by rapidly evolving technologies, cyberbullying represents a phenomenon whose factors, effects, and evolution must be studied and disseminated to key stakeholders, caregivers, teachers, educational community, municipalities, related ministries, among others. Our countries, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela, have regulations and legislation with regards to bullying and cyberbullying. In this framework, today's webinar seeks to share evidence of the association of cyberbullying with generative artificial intelligence as antagonist and savior, and related experience. On one hand, from the Alertar project, and on the other hand, from Chile's national policies. For this, we have luxury speakers, whom we thank in advance for their participation, and we give them a warm welcome. Dr. Samir Hinduja, Magister Teresa Soto, and Masters Leonardo Lopez. And to our audience, who week after week accompanies us, we give a warm welcome to this new space of learning, space to learn more and to encourage us to be agents of change in our work and coexistence scenarios. We will repeat, children and adolescents are the future. They are the present. The actions that we do will depend their future and the future of their community. Welcome all. Thank you very much, dear Dr. Calle. After the greeting of our Executive Secretary, I introduce myself. My name is Anita Kenta. I'm a public health and global health professional, and I'm part of the line of guaranteeing the rights of children and adolescents in Indiana's health organization. Today, with great pleasure, I will be in charge of moderating this webinar. After this preamble, we welcome to Dr. Samir Hinduja, who is professor of the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice at Florida Atlantic University, co-director of the Cyberbullying Research Center, and an associate professor at the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard University. He is internationally recognized for his innovative work on the risks and harms of emerging technologies in youth populations and individual, social, family, and community factors that can serve as protective assets. He received the Global Anti-Bullying Hero Award from Auburn University, won the Research of the Year Award from Florida Atlantic University. Most recently, he formally advised the Biden-Harris administration Interagency Task Force on Children's Online Health and Safety. Dr. Hinduja is co-founder and co-editor-in-chief of the International Journal on Bullying Prevention, published by Springer. Dr. Samir sent us a video of his presentation since it was not possible to participate. Despite his busy agenda, Dr. Hinduja demonstrates his commitment with that topic, record his presentation. We thank for his participation and his commitment as a referral at the international level. Let's roll the video.
Hello, my name is Dr. Samir Hinduja, and I would like to extend my warmest greetings to everyone attending from Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela. I deeply appreciate the work of the Andean Health Organization, and I am honored to speak with you today about generative AI. There is much promise and potential with these new large language models and new multimodal models. However, it is important for us to think through the possibilities of interpersonal risks and harms. How might bad actors use these models and systems, and what can we do about it? Let us begin. Generative AI is incredibly powerful and I would say transformative. Many individuals have used it for a variety of reasons. I've used it in order to figure out a recipe for dinner. I've used it in order to seek medical advice, which is probably not advisable. I've used it in order to figure out the best talking points to use in a hard conversation with a colleague. You can use it to create stories, to compose music, to write code, to plan your travel for your next vacation, to create a survey, and just to generate so much other types of content, whether it's audio, whether it's images, or whether it's text. So when I think about the most popular tools that are available for us to use, I think about those that are on the screen right now. Many of us have experimented with ChatGPT, perhaps even DALL-E, Google Gemini. Meta AI is now embedded into their platforms such as WhatsApp and Instagram and Facebook. Microsoft Copilot is now part of the Office 365 suite, and perhaps you've used it in order to, again, help you with outlining or summarizing parts of your document. Character AI, again, helps you to build a character bot that you can then interact with. And then image generator services such as Midjourney, as well as Stable Diffusion. In the bottom right, we have Snap's My AI, and I just wanted to open up the app and ask it the simple question of, hey, I'm speaking to a group today, and some of them might be a little bit nervous about the risks of generative AI. Do you have any advice for them or for me? And it just basically said back to me in almost perfect natural sort of conversational style that, hey, I think it's important to highlight the benefits and the potentials and also acknowledge some valid concerns. And so that's what I've tried to do. I'll start off with this image I made of my little girl, let's say, on a unicorn. My little girl's name is Maya, and she loves unicorns right now. And so I thought I would just create a picture. And I would say that it is incredibly well done. Maybe not hyper realistic, but perhaps with the addition of prompts that clarify exactly what I want, then I'm sure it would give it to me. And so I love that. I love just being able to go online and to experiment. And you might think that, perhaps you should have an actual artist create this piece of content for you. And that's fair. But I also feel that when we have the freedom to figure out what it is that we want and continue to refine the inputs that we're submitting in order to get what we want, it is a thought experiment. It is incredibly fun and intriguing and intellectually stimulating. And I think that since these tools are going to be around for forever, that we need to become more adept at using them. So with all that said, let's start off with some risky possibilities. I'll begin with false information and biases. We know that generative AI can give us information that is just not factual, and it gives us information that is perhaps patently false. Plus, the large language models that are used to create outputs have been trained on gigantic corpuses of data, which might lean in a certain direction, whether it's politically, whether it's culturally, whether it's socially. And oftentimes, the companies behind these gigantic LLMs are based in cultures which may conceive of themselves as perhaps superior to other cultures. Maybe they are based in certain countries that consider themselves to be superior to other countries. And maybe that is slowly but surely betrayed in the outputs that are created. You and I would never want that. You and I would hope that all of the data is unbiased, but perhaps that's not realistic. And so we need to be well aware with our eyes wide open about the outputs that are generated and consider the very real possibility of implicit bias. Harassment and cyberbullying. I care deeply about youth, and I know other presenters in this conference, for example, my good colleague and friend Dorothy Espelage, she cares deeply about youth as well. And so the focus is on, their relationships, whether it's at school or whether it's online. So whether we have general harassment, sexual harassment, cyberbullying, which we define as willful or repeated harm inflicted through the use of electronic devices, cell phones, computers, etc., well, you can understand that it can be aided and abetted by generative AI. For example, depending on the large language model that you're using, perhaps you type in certain inputs that gives you insights and creative ideas as to how best to attack someone, how best to harass them, threaten them, mistreat them. Now, we would never want that, and we trust that the major corporations behind these models are setting parameters in place to prevent those inputs from being submitted and from any outputs that could lead to violence or hateful activities, whether it's speech or actions, to be prohibited, where it just doesn't happen. But you just never know, especially with LLMs being built by smaller companies and maybe even by bad actors or rogue actors. Perhaps those are being trained on corpuses of data which involve hate speech or racist language. And so then consequently, the outputs that are generated are going to be similarly harmful. You might also, when it comes to harassment and cyberbullying, enlist the help of AI bots, conversational agents, to marshal some sort of coordinated attack against another individual. Whether you have all of those bots automatically inundate a common thread underneath someone's picture or video that they've just posted with hateful sentiments, with humiliating language, with curse words. You could do a lot. Additionally, let's say it's a chat channel. You can organize AI bots to also infiltrate that chat channel and repeatedly harass and intimidate the user or the main user or the individual who's streaming. And so that is a concern. Although when I say risky possibilities, I emphasize that we're not seeing this spiral out of control. We're not seeing tons and tons of misuse cases all around the world. Hate speech. There have been cases in the past, and I've written about them, where you might be able to use image generators in order to create racist imagery. And so again, that could be sent to other individuals. And when they receive it, when they're on the receiving end, it could bring up PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder elements. It could lead to traumatic outcomes simply because if I was inundated with racist language related to, or racist imagery rather, related to me being Asian Indian, I would feel that deeply because it is part and parcel of my identity. It is who I am. And research is very clear that when individuals are targeted with identity-based hate, whether verbal, whether textual or image-based, it cuts deeply and it harms them more emotionally and psychologically than if it was not based on their identity. Deepfakes. I thought about providing with some examples, but we know earlier this year, Taylor Swift had deepfake nudes created of her and then distributed all across the internet and social media. There's many other cases. I'm concerned about deepfake videos. I'm concerned about deepfake audios. I've written about various cases where political leaders of certain countries have been in videos and have had audio clips posted, but those clips are not legitimate. They've been doctored. They've been manipulated via software to make it seem like that political leader is saying something else, whether it's something racist and hateful, or whether it's siding with a specific political viewpoint, which can then arguably, and often sometimes does, incite or foment violence or at least conflict, at least additional tension within that country and across various demographic groups. Catfishing. If you're not familiar with catfishing, it's when individuals are deceptive about who they are. So they use social media and they might create some sort of profile pretending to be someone that they're not, and then connect with other individuals. Those individuals are unsuspecting and develop a friendship, maybe a best friendship, maybe even a romantic relationship with that other person based on who they think they are. But then down the road, they figure out that it's actually someone else. Whether it was someone who posed to be younger and they're actually older, whether they pose to be a woman and they're actually a man. There's a number of permutations. But the point is, all of this can be automated through the use of generative AI. And an individual intent on malice, intent on catfishing others, can use these systems in order to obtain creative ideas about the best way to trick or deceive or manipulate someone. Additionally, they can use and build conversational agents or AI bots to basically broker those conversations and those relationships so that intimacy is deepened, so that trust is engendered to get to the point where that other individual, the unsuspecting individual, can be taken advantage of, can be victimized, can be exploited. We also see sextortion cases, and that's when nudes, which might be sent between romantic partners or a couple of individuals who are flirting with each other, well, then those nudes eventually get into the hands of someone who is not to be trusted, a bad actor, a malicious user, and that user then blackmails and extorts the individual who is featured in the nude images and asks for additional sexual content or money or to engage with them in additional sexual activity. And so this again can be automated, and again, trust can be built very easily through the use of these tools by figuring out again what it takes to psychologically trick and manipulate your victim. What should you say next? How should you respond to this inquiry when they're starting to question whether or not you have good motives? Again, generative AI can give you those answers, and then you can use those answers to, again, deepen that relationship to get to a point where it can be exploited. Doxing. As I mentioned, these large language models are trained on a tremendous amount of data, but the question is there some personal information in that data? My personal information, your personal information, perhaps our financial information. You and I would hope that all of that has been removed from the training data, but you just never know. And you also don't know about other models that are being created even as I speak right now. What type of data are they being trained on? And could it possibly include personal information, which then might be sent out in an output to someone's input and then be in the hands of someone who might use it against us? When it comes to doxing, it's simply where an individual makes public your personal private information, whether it's social security number, phone number, address, account information, logins and passwords, whatever it is. The argument is that maybe all that information is in the training data as well, and it could possibly get into the hands of a user who takes advantage of it, and it leads to victimization. And dogpiling, that's where you automate a process where a number of individuals go ahead and attack someone, whether it's in a chat channel or whether it's on a social media platform. And I'm not talking about 10 to 15, I'm talking about hundreds, multiple hundreds, maybe even thousands. Report brigading has to do with automating the process of reporting against a user on social media, accusing them of doing something that violates the rules of that platform, violates the terms of service of that platform. Now, I could report on someone, but if we have hundreds and hundreds of people reporting on someone, even if it's false, it is possible that that platform will go ahead and ban that user, kick them off the platform while they do the investigation. And so in that case, maybe that user did nothing wrong and uses that platform in order to earn money, make a living. Maybe their business is built upon that platform. So now they're off the platform unfairly, all because people were lying about what they might have done online, and they've consequently been kicked off. Identity theft and scams, again, when it comes to generative AI, you can understand that that can happen more and more often as malicious users figure out the best way to deceive and to trick individuals, to get them to fall prey to various sorts of scams. I've written about one case which involved deepfake audio in order to make it seem like some business decision had to be made very, very quickly. And this message seemed to be coming from the boss or the supervisor. And so then that employee ended up making that decision, which led to millions of dollars of loss, even though they shouldn't have, and even though they should have verified the truthfulness of this audio recording or this video file. And then misinformation and disinformation. Many countries are involved in election season. And so we're going to have just so much misinformation and disinformation, which is where you intentionally try to deceive someone with false knowledge, being spread in order to get a specific candidate to win office, in order to get other people to look, in order to make other people look bad, as if they're doing the wrong things, as if they believe in ridiculous causes or have certain perspectives which are detrimental to the country as a whole. Now they don't, but misinformation can be generated and then shared through these generative AI systems. A couple other points I wanted to share with you. There was some research done involving youth and their parents last year in 2023. And you can see that 2 out of 3 of parents and 2 out of 3 of teens use generative AI systems and models. They use it for analytic tasks, creative tasks, and efficiency boosting tasks. And what was surprising to me is that, let's say, 30% to 37% use it for emotional support. So you don't know who to turn to. You've got a pressing question that is weighing deeply on your heart. You might very well just type it in as an input to one of these tools. And perhaps it gives you comfort. Perhaps it gives you wise input that you then can apply to your life and feel better. And here's the final point that I wanted to say related to this data. 2 out of 3 believe that it will be a vital skill to have. And I absolutely agree with that. I think that all of us need to spend time experimenting with these technologies and have a basic level of familiarity. So in terms of preventing harms, we want labeling to occur. It could be automatic labeling, and we know some social media companies might label generative AI content as, made with AI. And that helps us to know what might possibly be synthetic or fake. Additionally, we want users, or in this case, TikTok wants users to label any content that they post, any videos that they post that involves generative AI. Again, it's important for us to have our eyes wide open and know what we're looking at and what we're interacting with. I think that age verification can also help, and it might be useful to implement age verification when it comes to certain tools trained on data which might be adult-oriented. And so I can imagine that there's going to be tools which cater to mature adults. And you and I can think of various sorts of reasons as to why that might be. But we should verify age and figure out a seamless way to do so, a way that doesn't involve a lot of friction and can avoid privacy violations. And when we do so, I think we're going to be able to set guardrails amongst youth populations and ideally keep them a little bit more safe. You can also work with Facebook and other platforms to tell them specifically that you don't want your personal data included in their training data, included in their models. And so I would personally opt out if I was you. And then I think it's a great idea to be skeptical. We want to encourage all users to be skeptical when they're using any of these models and hoping to generate text output or image output. Be skeptical, be suspicious about what is fed back to you, because you don't want to just take it and, for example, put it in a term paper and assume that it's the truth. As I wrap up, let me just give you 10 prevention tips. As you work with youth particularly, it would be so critical to sit down together and use these tools together, because then if you have questions, they can answer them. If they have questions, you can answer them and you learn together. It's important to have a conversation about prompts. We don't want our youth, our children or teenagers typing in various sorts of inputs that might open themselves up to possible victimization because they're revealing private information. We also don't want them to submit prompts which relate to anything that could cause violence or anything that could, give them ideas related to self-harm. We also want them to remember that there's always a bias when it comes to prompts that even they are inputting, apart from the outputs that are received and that are generated by the models. Hallucinations simply refers to the false information, the untrue information that these systems provide. We must be very careful, and as I mentioned earlier, we must be skeptical and evaluate and determine what is true, what is fact, and what is fiction. We also need to remember that sometimes these generative AI models, they simply parrot back, they repeat or regurgitate the data, the content that they've been trained on. And so we must understand that as well and critically evaluate it. Talk to them about unethical use. Sometimes it's malicious, again, them wanting to do harm to somebody else and to get instructions about that. Or it's non-malicious, and they just are trying to finish their term paper or their essay exam. But still, it's unethical if they're plagiarizing, if they're just taking information from the internet and passing it on as their own, passing it off as their own. You can ask any generative AI tool to give you the sources and the citations, and all students, all youth should disclose the use of these tools to school, to work, to any organization where you're submitting any sort of project, any sort of outputs. and they should trust their senses, trust their heuristics, which simply means that you and I, because we've lived many years, we have a sense about us to be able to determine what seems to be a little bit off, what seems to be a little bit weird or different. And that could be in a picture, that could be in a video, that could be in a paragraph of text. We should trust that, and that should motivate us to look a little bit deeper to determine if this is actually legitimate and true and original, or if it's fake and synthetic and false. Plus, we have to remember to constantly stay involved. Whenever there's emerging technologies, adults and youth have to continue to partner together. It takes everyone. So if you have a platform with youth, whether you're a person in the community, whether you're a government employee, whether you're an influencer, whether you work in the medical field or in healthcare, you have an opportunity to talk about these issues with kids, with teenagers. And I think that because it's so relevant to their lives, they will listen to you. Look for those opportunities, and then you could pass on wisdom as well. Here's my contact information. If you need anything or would like to talk about these topics or any other topics at the intersection of youth and technology, please let me know, because I work with a number of schools, nonprofits, governmental agencies and entities, social media platforms, and youth serving adults, just to try to continue to make a difference. I know everyone who's in attendance to this conference, they care a lot about youth and adults when it comes to bullying, when it comes to cyberbullying, when it comes to these emerging technologies, and we will continue to work together to make a positive difference. Thank you so much for your time and for your attention.
We thank the participation of Dr. Luria and his interest for being part of this, participating in this important webinar. He spoke about generative AI, has very useful to make in a daily life and professional life make it easier. However, he mentioned that all technological progress brings risk that he reflected on, and he mentioned what we can do in that respect. Among that is fake news, cyberbullying, fake clips, catfishing, dogfilling. You insisted that we should be alert and ready to face the risk that these represent both for the truth of the information, the integrity, emotional stability, and intimacy of people, both in online as in real life. Finally, made a call to all the stakeholders, including the large companies, to protect the integrity of the people in internet, especially of the most susceptible population group, that is our adolescents and young people. We thank for his participation. Now we extend a warm welcome to Magister Teresa Soto, who's here with us in the room. She is a professional of the National Program of Comprehensive Health of Adolescents and Youth from the Department of Vital Cycle of the Secretary of Public Health of the Ministry of Health in Chile. She has a master's degree in public health from the European University of the Atlantic in Spain. In addition, an international diploma in analysis and intervention in sexual violence in digital online context by the Catholic University of Valparaiso. A diploma course in right approach in childhood policies from the University of Concepcion, among others. She is a member of the National Observatory for the Eradication of Sexual Exploitation of Children and Adolescents. She is tutor of the course of Violence Against Women at the University of Concepcion, the National Service for Women and Gender from 2020 to. Go ahead, dear Dr. Soto, you have the floor. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can you see the presentation? Yes. Well, I thank for the invitation and to and this topic from the health position is interesting. We're going to see what happens in Chile with school bullying or cyberbullying, some national legislation, and the role of public health in the prevention of bullying and cyberbullying. It's an important issue for us because a public health issue. Then detection and prevention. When we talk or we think on cyberbullying and bullying, what are we thinking on? We have like two major collective images. One, the old one of hitting in classroom, in making fun of others and rumors. In seventh grade is where we see the major physical changes in children, boys and girls, and they start to change their body. So some have some mustache, perhaps they start to gain weight. And this is when we have, and they have 12 or 13 years, and we see this. And until a couple of years ago, when we talk about bullying, nowadays this has expanded, and it's not different, but it's this, and in addition, this other, where we include social media. The same rumors, the same humiliations were taken to social media. So if we're adding both, they're not different, they're both. What are we talking about? Well, we talk about harassment. We see that it's an action with the act of pursuing without respite or response, a person insistently pressing someone with annoyances or requests. Then we have cyberbullying, which is the psychological intimidation, harassment, and humiliation that occurs among peers. It's always going to be among peers, but in addition, it can also be translated to a digital media, and generally with anonymity. There's no visible person. It is done from hiding. Then we have bullying or school bullying, any form of psychological, verbal, physical, or social mistreatment produced between students repeatedly. This is both in the classroom, through outside the classroom, and also through social networks. This starts many times it starts in classroom, but ends up outside the school with aggression, hitting, and taking their clothes off, things like that. Bullying corresponds to a violent and intentional act or behavior in the school context. This is not random, and this is among peers repeatedly generating an unbalanced relationship of force and asymmetrical power, where the person exposed to these negative actions is not able. It may be established in two ways. One direct, which I mentioned at the beginning, physical or verbal attacks with blows, insults, among others, and the indirect, maybe through exclusion or isolation in the recess space, ignoring the person, not talking to the person is isolated, and this may be in one person or in groups. People involved in traditional bullying, first, the affected person or victim, then we have the person or group of persons carrying out this aggression. So this is a group inside the classroom, and the person who observes or participates as a witness to the action. It's not involved, but is inside the process. Here we see that in cyberbullying, it's a form of online violence similar to what we mentioned before in adolescent peers, boys and adolescent boys and girls, with intentional and repeated online actions or actions to affect another person through the use of digital media. Facebook, TikTok, and many other platforms available. It's not easily identifiable because there are in anonymity in terms of social networks. What are the characteristics of this cyberbullying? First, intentionality of the action. It can be through insults or threats, impersonation by creating fake profiles in social networks and or online games, spreading false rumors, publishing hurtful or humiliating messages, uploading photos or videos without consent, shared through instant messages in WhatsApp, or excluding the person from online groups to denigrate him or her. Well, through digital media, as we mentioned, through mobile devices, digital or social platforms, and we have Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, among others. Text messages or others where the person performing the action is anonymous or not easily identifiable. This is also repeated. The effect of repetition will be given by the number of people who saw and share or their likes. So a certain image or video at that point starts to be unique. It becomes viral and it's going to have a repetitive effect and this is going to be shared. So it's no longer automatically private. What are differences and similarities between bullying and cyberbullying? Well, the similarities, as I mentioned, the intentionality, the people involved are children, adolescents, and young people. Here we see an imbalance of power. What are the roles? The person affected, the person who performs the behavior, and the person who observes or participates. We mentioned these three participants that are important in this period. And the person who observes may not be only one, can be a group of people, and they take this role of observers, but doesn't do anything. What are the differences between bullying and cyberbullying? Bullying is face to face. The person of group text or assault is identifiable by the person. We know who they are. We know in what space they're doing this. The action or actions must be repeated and maintained over time, generating displeasure in the affected person. There must be a power imbalance between the person harassing and the person affected. The affected person have problems of self-esteem and shyness. An example, for example, is the strength, the height, the weight, the sex, gender. It occurs in the school and it is a specific person of group. Compared to cyberbullying, which is anonymous through social networks, where the person, whereby the person perpetrating the action is not identifiable. The repetition is mediated by the number of times an image or message is shared and has been seen by a wide audience. It may be manipulated by someone. The imbalance may be due in handling the ICTs and also by not being able to detect who is or are harassing through virtual means. It is very difficult. It can happen at any time through virtual platforms The mobility and connectivity of social networks allow cyberbullying to be random and 24/7, as opposed to bullying, which has a school schedule. This can be at any minute and repeated constantly. This is a general context. As you see at the magnitude of the problem in Chile, bullying and cyberbullying have had many changes. Phenomenon that generates a lot of concern in the country because we know more and more cases of young and adolescents who have been affected. Later, we're going to see some testimonies. For example, in 2019, the superintendents of education had registered 3,008 complaints of bullying. 2 years later, the number of complaints had increased to 5,115. In 2023, there were 4,502 reports of student abuse. The figure is 12% less than in 2022, but it is also the second highest in a decade. And which doesn't mean that this may be true because many of these children and adolescents do not report because they're of fear. These reports were mostly by women, so there's a sex bias. 56.2% were women. Now, in the ninth National Youth Survey in 2018, indicates that the leading place were young people between 15 and 29 years of age report of having suffered situations of physical violence in a school or at their place of study. University, technical schools, and psychological violences in 15.3%, and physical violence of 28.7%. When we break down by age, more alarming, 45.6% of young people between 15 and 19 years of age, 23% of young people between 20 and 24, and 14 of young people between 25 and 29. This survey also shows that the situations of physical and psychological violence at school or place of study occur at all socioeconomic levels in a similar way. This is cross-sectional, doesn't have to do with economic or social specifically. Regarding school violence based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression, those are very concerned. This survey made by an organization called Todo Mejora, which stated 4 out of 5 LGBTIQ plus students in Chile feel insecure in school because of their sexual orientation. 9.7% of these LGBT students were attacked, punched, kicked, or injured with a weapon at school because of their sexual orientation, and 10.3% because of their gender expression. This is quite revealing because we have funny cases of girls that have died following aggression because of sexual orientation. From a gender perspective, cyberbullying reproduces forms of violence not only against women, but also against people of sexual diversity, constituting a new territory for exercising power relations between genders, especially among those who have or have had a sexual affective relationship. Blackmail, public humiliation, control of networks, and the content shared on them are new ways of exercising dominance over people of sexual diversity. The National Survey of Technology Use in Schools shows that 10,933 students between 7th grade and 4th grade from 84 schools nationwide, how bullying has changed, increasing the use of various technologies.
Esto también se incrementó bastante y mucho más producto de la pandemia. El 60% reconoce el manejar la tecnología desde
60% recognize that they've been using technology since they were 10 years old. 79.1% uses technological devices in their bedroom, and therefore with no adult supervision or their parents or responsible adult. 40.2% check their cell phones at school only when they are allowed to do so, while 28.5% check them constantly, even without permission. 92.8% declare having an account on a social network. So most of children and adolescents. 2% say that the origin of conflicts in social networks is due to a misinterpretation of comments. The 1% that there are a bad reaction to a joke. And 56% attribute it to the fact that they do not dare to argue in person. The same survey indicates that 48.6% believe that cyberbullying has the same effect as bullying, while 40.4% believe it has more effect than bullying. 80% say that they will defend when a friend is attacking the classroom or school, and this figure decreases to around 50% when it is on social networks or internet. 36.8% stated that they have annoyed online or offline during this last year, in boardroom being the main reason, either when they annoyed in person, close to 40%, or when they annoyed on social networks, over 40%. And this leads us to think, what have we done? What legislation do we have? In 2011, although it was a very long process, the school violence was enacted law, the 25cc, which amended the general education law to address problems bullying among students in Chile, and thus set guidelines for the school community to address these type of aggressive situations. In Article 16b, it indicates the bullying that is understood as any action or omission constituting aggression or repeated harassment carried out outside or inside the educational establishment by students who individually or collectively attempt against other students, taking advantage of a situation of superiority or defenselessness of the affected students. In the latter, mistreatment, humiliation, or well-founded fear of being exposed to a serious harm, either by technological means or any other means, taking into account their age and condition. Some of these laws that were associated to this law of 2011, in this same article, Article 16 indicates that the education establishment must take some measures, and for that they must generate educational projects in order to promote a good school coexistence and prevent all forms of physical and psychological violence, aggression, or harassment. Create a good school coexistence committee which fulfills the functions of promotion and prevention in those facilities. To have a school coexistence officer who will be responsible for the implementation of the measures determined by the school council or the good school coexistence committee as appropriate, and which must include a management plan that should be yearly basis, should be evaluated and monitored with the same students. Another detail is, for example, Law 21013 of 2017 that refers to the mistreatment of vulnerable persons whose objective is to punish conduct that violates the physical and psychological integrity of children and adolescents, but does not constitute injuries. Does not leave visible physical injuries, and here We talk about psychological
Fuera del
injuries
contexto familiar, por ejemplo, las personas que
executed
ejercen
outside the family
derechos
context. For
sociales
example, people who have
educadores de párvulos,
assault
profesores
in
encargados de educar
kindergarten
a los niños y
educator,
adolescentes o
teacher,
de los
caregiver,
directivos de
or a
niñez.
classmate themselves.
También tenemos la ley
We also have
21369
Law
del año
21369 of year
2021.
2021,
Su objetivo es promover
whose
la
objective
creación de
is to promote the
políticas
creation of
públicas
comprehensive policies
orientadas a
aimed
prevenir,
at preventing,
mitigar, sancionar
investigating,
o
sanctioning, and
erradicar
eradicating
sexual,
sexual
la
harassment,
violencia y la
violence, and gender
discriminación
discrimination
en todas las
in all
instituciones de
higher
educación
education
superior.
institutions.
Cuando hablamos de educación
When
superior,
we talk
es
about
la universidad,
higher education,
institutos o
university,
centros de formación
institutes, or
técnica, con el
technical training
fin de
centers,
construir
in order to
espacios
build
seguros
safe
y libres de
spaces free
acoso,
of
violencia y
harassment, violence, and gender
discriminación
discrimination
para todas las
for all
personas,
people
instituciones
who interact
y comunidades
in
académicas,
academic or
educativas
educational
de la
communities
Universidad
of
de Chile.
higher education.
¿Quiénes están encargadas de
Who is
cumplir
in
con
charge of
este?
compliance?
Bueno, es la
Well, the
Superintendencia de Educación.
superintendents of education.
Su objetivo es fiscalizar y
Its
que
objective is to supervise
se cumpla la ley, ¿no?
and honest with the
También
law
atender las denuncias y
through
reclamos de
to
esta
attend the complaints and claims,
organización en
applying the
cada caso
corresponding sanctions
que
in each case
corresponda. ¿Qué
as applicable.
prevé? Bueno, el maltrato
Well,
escolar,
is
el acoso,
school
el
abuse,
bullying
harassment, and
y la
bullying,
discriminación
and
o agresiones
discrimination or
sexuales,
sexual
también
abuse,
dentro de las
also
instituciones
in the
escolares.
school
La
institution.
Superintendencia de Educación
The
tendrá
superintendents of
dos
school education
canales de
has two channels
atención
to
para
formalize
formalizar estas
complaints
denuncias.
or reports.
Uno es a través de
These
nuestra
channels
página
are
web, ya,
web-based
denuncias.supereduc.cl, y
at
el otro a través de fiscalizaciones
denuncias.superedu.cl and
donde
through
a través de todas las
face-to-face.
regiones del país,
In all the regions of the
donde
country, there's
las
a
personas
regional
pueden ir a
complaint
hacer esta
attention
denuncia.
office where they
Y
can make the
en el
report.
caso de la
And in
educación
the cases of
a
higher
través de
education,
su
the
canal
complaints
web
form
y
to the
se
web channel
realiza a través
and
de
it's
acá un
done
formulario y se
so
hace la
filling up
investigación
a form.
respectiva. Pero
And
además, en cada
in addition,
lugar,
in each
escuela
place,
o centro de
school
educación,
or
tiene que
educational
haber
center,
un centro
there
donde
has to be a
también se
center
realicen
where the channel
las denuncias.
is report
Bueno, vimos estos
complaints.
contextos generales.
We
Ahora
see in this
veamos
general context. Now,
cuál
how
es
do we
nuestro
see
rol
this
de
from
salud
our
mental,
role
cómo
in
hacemos esta
health?
prevención del acoso
How do we
escolar y el
prevent bullying
ciberbullying.
and
Quiero decirles
cyberbullying?
que es relevante porque es un
It is
tema de salud
relevant because
pública,
this is a public
producto de
health
las
issue.
consecuencias que puede tener
The
tanto para la salud
consequences they
física
can
y la
have
salud
for the
mental
physical and
de los
mental
niños y
health of
adolescentes en
children and
Chile. Y esto
adolescents.
puede ser a
And
corto
this may be in
plazo,
the
mediano
short
o
term,
largo
medium
plazo.
term, or
Son
long term.
consecuencias que
And
son
we see consequences
habituales y que se
that are
pueden
common,
dar. Y ahí es
and
donde debemos
there
estar
we
muy pendientes,
should be
como
very alert,
constante,
such as constant
dificultad del
headaches,
apetito,
decreased appetite,
dificultad para conciliar el
difficulty
sueño,
falling asleep,
baja del
a
ánimo,
low mood,
depresión,
depression,
ideación suicida,
and suicidal
trastornos
ideation,
afectivos, dolores
adaptive
estomacales, que un niño no
disorders,
quiere ir al
stomach pains.
colegio,
Child doesn't want to go to
trabajando.
school because there's something
Si
going
bien
on.
la mayoría de los
Although
esfuerzos
most of the
de
efforts,
prevención
as we
hallados sobre el
mentioned,
acoso escolar y el
against
bullying
bullying and
se han
harassment
iniciado y
are
dirigidos hacia el
initiated and
sistema
directed
educativo
by
y
the
las
education systems.
consecuencias
Its
asociadas a estos
consequences
temas
are
vamos a
associated
ver
with
algunos
health
problemas de
problems,
salud. Probablemente las personas
and
afectadas
perhaps the affected
van a buscar
individuals
ayuda
are
en
likely
un
to seek
personal
help
sanitario.
from
Y
healthcare
una buena
providers.
puerta de entrada
And
es
what
la
is a
atención primaria,
gateway is
¿ya?
the primary
Que
healthcare,
permite el acceso tanto al entorno
allowing the
familiar y
access to
social
the
de la
family and
persona
social
afectada
environment of
por
the
ser un
affected person,
espacio
being a
de
space where the
rehabilitación
necessary,
preventiva dependiendo de la sintomatología de este
the,
fenómeno.
depending on their symptomatology.
Probablemente varios casos
Otherwise,
queden
several cases will
invisibilizados
probably remain
o más
invisible
probable
due to
en
silence or
silencio
reserve.
y en reserva. Algunos de estos
Some
síntomas
of these
los
symptoms,
clasificamos como
we classify them as
internalizantes y
internalizing and
externalizantes. Dentro de estos
externalizers.
síntomas están los
Among these
físicos,
symptoms, we
que
have the
ya lo
physical
hablamos hace unos
symptoms
minutos,
that we
que es
saw
el
in the previous
cólera,
slide:
los dolores
headache, abdominal
abdominales,
pain,
mareos,
dizziness,
insomnio,
insomnia,
sensación de ahogo, pesadillas,
sensation,
sudoración,
nightmares, or sleep disorders.
falta de conciliación del
Loss,
sueño o la mantención del sueño, pérdida del apetito,
loss of
tremor,
appetite,
fatiga y
tremor,
palpitaciones. Que
palpitation.
un niño sienta
That a child
constantemente
constantly
sintomatología
experiences
física, está
physical
demostrando que
symptoms
algo está
is
pasando
demonstrating
en su
something is
entorno,
going on in
¿ya?
their
Los síntomas
environment.
psicológicos, la
The
ansiedad,
psychological symptoms,
angustia,
anxiety,
llanto
anguish,
descontrolado,
crisis,
tristeza,
uncontrolled crying,
baja
sadness,
autoestima,
low self-esteem,
indiferencia,
indifference,
reservas en la comunidad
perturbations in communications, introversion, decreased concentration and memory, suicide ideation and suicide attempt, suicidal thoughts or behavior. Children who have had a similar behavior and suddenly overnight changes, there must be something going on. They're not able to be emotionally well in school and they start to have constant changes. That is something of concern. The behavioral changes, the use of internet, there's an abrupt increase or decrease in frequency,
Cambia la ausencia de amistades.
change and absence of friendship. That group that used to be their friends are no longer that. An aggressive response, a lower school performance, school absentees, product of these symptoms that we mentioned, social isolation, sudden changes in behavior and irritability. Health response to these cases, we mentioned that it was primary care in accordance with a comprehensive healthcare model with a family and community approach. We must suspect cyberbullying or the variants are suspected in this child or adolescent should go for an evaluation and diagnostic confirmation for admission to mental health. We're going to see a referral algorithm later. However, it is important to consider that when this professional or team detected this, it should not be the team that speaks with the family or the responsible tutor, but they should help this person, this boy or adolescent, is the one who could tell their family group what has happened, or the tutor or the person responsible, because it is him or her that should report that, because there's a need that the adult people learn about it and avoiding feeling that the professional has betrayed them. So it must be support and not have a role that's different other than support and accompany this boy, girl, adolescent in this process. In most cases, the detection is early or must be early and action is immediate and effective. It is possible to start or comprehensively address the consequences of cyberbullying. The cases may arise to different instances or entry channels, which may include any outpatient health consultation, a morbidity consultation, an urgency service consultation, or referral of cases from the health network or community network, emergency services, or through the Healthy Health Control for adolescents. Here we see an algorithm of action in the case of bullying or cyberbullying. Control of comprehensive health is extremely important. A control that's performed children and adolescents. You have 5 minutes left. There is a standard where you can use different interventions, and this is when we can suspect and make the adequate referral. Here we have some questions that can be asked. You've been insulted, called names, and they change depending on the suspicious, depending if it's been a cyberbullying or bullying. Prevention is extremely important. The health teams that work in the care of the girl and adolescent have a it is very important to understand that these strategies of gradual incorporation in digital world by understanding and explaining and talking with boys and girls and adolescents to plan their use. And these are recommendations to families both for parents and their boys, girls, and adolescents. For example, indicate parents not to use technologies in front of their children that should be controlled. Parents should control, should be aware, and they should not use their cell phones before the age of 13. In terms of recommendations for children and adolescents, explain that hurting another person on purpose and repeated over time is going to produce some harm. It's a form of violence. Use them to solve conflicts in a peaceful way, helping understand that violence is not the answer. So here there are different guidelines that can allow the children and adolescents can modify their behavior or solve these situations. Now, some prevention strategies that we as the Ministry of Health have, for example, this communication campaign of last year, where there were videos that were broadcasted through networks in schools and different levels about the substance abuse, violence, and in violence, one of them was the bullying and cyberbullying. Also, through health, the control of health for boys and girls and adolescents, we had this communication campaign that allow us to detect violence and other violations, and this was shared through social networks and with influencers. And the adolescent health-friendly spaces program that I mentioned is throughout the level in 375, where we talk about healthcare, feeding, nutrition, sexuality in projects, and this is for boys, girls, and adolescents from 10 to 19 years. And the Advisory Council for Adolescents, which is a space for youth participation, reflection, and action to influence public policies, which also takes in consideration violence issues. We also have an intersectorally collaborative work, and through the Youth Institute. There is a space where we talk about everything and we talk about violence, and through the Ministry of Education. We also are working in different technical guidelines. This is a 2021 from the Ministry of Health for detection and early response on cyberbullying that has allowed us to create awareness in different health teams and that they can detect it and make a comprehensive approach. In conclusion, well, the consequences for the affected persons are important and also for those who perpetrate. So the health officials have a relevant role in this effort and do an early detection and a comprehensive approach because this may save a life. Here to end up, we have three cases. There are many, but these were very iconic cases in Chile. Like Pamela Pizarro, a 13-year-old eighth grade student, took her own life to leaving a letter to the constant abuse from her class. Katy Winter, only 16 years old, took her own life after being a victim of bullying. Felipe, 13 years old, was the victim of a violent beating by his classmates that he had severe injuries in the head, neck, and thorax, and was, so I think that the most important, as said by this student, no more bullying. And for that, we all have to be very alert, professionals who work in different instances, education. So we as a society teach our children to control, and we as parents and people of members of society to be more alert of the use of technology. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias,
Thank you
estimado.
very much,
Interesante.
dear Magister Teresa
Por
Soto.
supuesto que sí, necesita un
Of
abordaje
course, that it needs a
comprehensivo.
comprehensive approach.
Usted nos mostró un
You have shown
marco
a
actual de la
landscape of the cyberbullying and cyberbullying in school and outside school, also the sectors involved.
En el caso de Chile,
In
está
the case of
representado
Chile,
al
it
profesorado,
represents a
siendo
act
las
of concern,
personas que más denuncian estos
and the people
casos
who most report
mujeres,
these cases are women.
mayoritariamente vulnerados
mostly are vulnerable populations who are the LBTG populations. In recent years, there's been an increase in cyberbullying, mostly due to the pandemic. And for that, there is current legislation against school bullying since 2011 and the mechanisms for their control. And the Ministry of Health continue working strongly, and you have a wide line of activities, campaigns, and instances against cyberbullying. This is a comprehensive approach and also emphasizing prevention in schools and communities. Dear Magister Teresa Soto, thank you so much for your excellent presentation and presented with so much dynamism. We have received many congratulations and questions. We invite you to remain in the room. At the end of the dissertation, we will have a Q&A based on the questions that have been sent. And now I will hand over the moderation to my colleague, Rudy Diaz, Public and Global Health Professional of Horas ONU. Go ahead. Thank you. Now we give a warm welcome to Magister Leonardo Lopez. He has more than a decade of technological experience. He is a telecommunications engineer and has a master's degree in data science and business intelligence. He's the founder of the Data Rock LLC in Miami, USA, working as a consultant for IT projects oriented to data visualization, integrating artificial intelligence services. Beyond his business success, he delivers a valuable social commitment, leading technology initiatives for school safety and environment. In Argentina, Leonardo promotes Alertar, a system that uses an intelligent chatbot to process data to prevent bullying and school harassment. He also organizes datathons to promote networking, research, and the collaborative spirit between university government. Is an active member of PMI, IEEE, Copytech, and active participant in the technology cluster. Welcome, Leonardo, you have the space, the floor. Hello, thank you very much to everyone for this space and the invitation. And actually, the presentation from the previous speakers are very well aligned to what I bring to share, and also motivated that everything that is need to collect information of what is happening. As Teresa mentioned, it's extremely important that we can have a measurement of that data, because it is there where we can measure and we can make improvements to know where we are and to have effective actions to correct them. I'm going to share my screen for my presentation. Yes, go ahead. Well, how this initiative started and why we are working on this, because we start to investigate data and numbers of what's going on, and we decide to take action, thinking of tell everybody from the audience and to reflect of what can we do. For those who work with technology, we decided to generate a relationship to carry out these type of activities to help in the prevention with data analytics and intelligence, artificial intelligence systems. Data to share from Argentina. According to survey, 7 out of 10 suffer from bullying. These are adolescents in school. Last year, more than 50,000 serious cases were reported, and the data that correlates with these figures is that is growing exponentially. Worldwide is in rank 5th in the world, according to official statistics from the Bullying Without Borders organization, and indicated that among the leading ones are the cases of Mexico, US, and Spain. With regards to Peru, I have the information that last years, according to this foundation, half of the cases registered in Argentina. But there's a major factor, as the specialist mentioned, is that most of the cases not reported and not registered. So there is a very important figure, and according to recent studies from the universities in Argentina, reveal that only 1 out of 3 actions are formally registered. So most of the statistics that we have we could triplicate the numbers to have a more real approximation. So we have this proposal that we would like to share and to put our of other countries that are listening to us, that can contact us, and we can offer them this service of taking massive metrics in schools through a chat with artificial intelligence, where children feel more inclined to share information. Recommendations in general for all the institutions and organizations, it is important to speak it, report it, and to prevent it. And in line with this, from our company, DataRock, what we're looking is to align this proposal according to the SDGs for 2030 from United Nations, and we find that education has a strong focus to align our data project. We want to collaborate, and our contribution is to use data science and artificial intelligence tools to create this proposal that's called Alerta AR. It's a data analytics system to assist in the prevention of all types of risks, in this case, the social education risk. How does it work? Basically, persons like children, adolescents can have this chatbot in school. They can just scan a QR code and they go into the system. An adult or some witness, which is another important figure, so we empower everyone who is around a situation like this and can use the service to report it and to alert of what is going on. It may be done with registering their data, and they can do it anonymously, but it is important to be registered. And we process that and obtain visualization and statistics that are both descriptive of what's going on, as well as to anticipate certain with analytics, with match and learning models. We also process some automatic services to provide alerts to those who give follow-up to these cases and can do the adequate approach in a personalized way. So if a boy needs help, he or she may request it in terms of access information or have advice that we train to respond according to certain topics and within a specific context. And the most important thing is that the approach of critical cases are managed by persons
que le dan este acompañamiento.
who are.
Y finalmente, para una
And
mejora
finally,
continua,
for a continuous
nos dan
improvement,
un feedback los
they
usuarios
receive a
para
feedback
seguir
from the
haciendo
users
ajustes y mejoras.
continue making
Acá les
adjustments and
comparto
improvements.
una captura
I
para
share you
hacerlo breve y sencillo
a small
de
video
básicamente cómo estaría funcionando
how
la
is
herramienta.
this tool
Los chicos van a
works.
escanear y
They
comienzan a
scan
conversar.
and they start a
Ciertas
discussion.
conversaciones
Certain
están preestablecidas
conversations are
para nosotros darle un
pre-established
seguimiento y
so
que
we can provide follow-up,
fácilmente quien está reportando el
and
caso
who is
con
reporting it
seleccionar algunos simples
by
botones
selecting
ya
simple
puedan estar
buttons
básicamente
and
compartiendo
be
si
sharing
quieren o no su información
either
y
one or
sobre
not
todo
that information
comentar
and
qué
to
ha
tell
sucedido.
what.
Lo importante es que después de
The
hacer
important is
todo
that
el seguimiento
after
de la
doing this
información,
follow-up of
estos datos
information,
son los que se van a
these
utilizar
are the
para
data
tener
that are going to
métricas
be
en
used to
tiempo
have
real. Es decir,
real-time
lo que se está
metrics.
escribiendo
So what is
en
being
este
written
momento,
at this moment,
nuestro sistema lo está capturando
our
y
system
podemos
is
saber
capturing,
un
and
montón
we can
de información fundamental
learn
para
about a
tomar
lot of
decisiones
important information to make decisions
políticas a nivel
of political
legislativo,
type
a
or
nivel
legislative
académico, a
or
nivel
academic
reglamentación,
or regulation,
y el abordaje sobre
and
todo
the
para llegar de
approach
manera
to
temprana a
come
cada uno de los casos.
in
Incluso
early
si logramos
fashion to
tener
all of the cases.
cierta cantidad de
And if
métricas,
we have
podemos
as
anticiparnos a
number of
ciertos
metrics,
eventos y
we
ciertos
can
hechos.
anticipate some
Acá podemos
events and
ver que
some facts.
estamos enviando,
We
por
can see
ejemplo,
that
no solo
we are
textos, sino
sending not
también
only
audio,
text, but audio.
y ese audio se convierte a un
Audio
procesamiento automático a
is
texto,
automatically
es
processed
decir,
to
se
text.
convierte la voz
So
a
voice
texto,
is
y si
converted
se
into
confirma
text.
lo que se
And
acaba
if
de
we
expresar,
confirm what has just been expressed,
rápidamente se le da seguimiento
we
y
can do
se
follow-up
obtienen
and
métricas de
we
todos estos
obtain
casos
metrics of all
y
of
hay una
these
especie de
cases.
feedback y más
And there's
opciones
a lot of
para
feedback and
que
more
los
options.
chicos puedan ser
So the
asistidos
children can
de
be
manera rápida,
helped
práctica y en la
quickly in
visualización
the
de lo que
practical and
sucedió.
the visualization.
Este tipo de reportes son
Type
los que van
of
a tener
reports are the ones
únicamente
that go
con
to
usuario y contraseña con máxima
with a
seguridad
users and a
el
password with a lot
acceso
of
a
security.
los casos de manera georreferenciada
With
porque tomamos
georeferentiated
también ubicaciones
because we
y
also
acá
take
podemos
the
trabajar de manera
location.
regional con
We
cada
can
uno de los
work at a
casos.
regional level.
Podemos
One
trabajar
of the
con
cases
interacciones, con
we can
filtros
work with
y accedemos a
interaction
toda la
filters
información
so
de
we
lo que está
can see all the
sucediendo
information
de manera
of what is
automática
going
en
on
tiempo
in an
real.
automatic in real time.
Tipos de visualizaciones que vamos a
This
poder
is the
ver.
type
Esto es un
of screens that
ejemplo.
we can
Todos
see. This is
datos
an example.
son públicos porque
All the
es una
data are public
simulación que
because this is
traemos en
a
este momento
simulation
para
that we made there
compartir.
to
Nada
share.
es
None
confidencial
of
ni
this is
representa ningún
confidential
tipo
and
de
doesn't
persona.
represent
Hago
any
la
person.
aclaración.
I should like to
Y que
clarify
es
that.
a modo de ejemplo para
And
que
just as
puedan
an
ver
example,
los
so
tipos de registros
the
que
type
podemos
of
tener, como la cantidad
record
de
we
denuncias.
the amount of
Podemos hacer análisis
reports or
temporal
claims
y
we
ver,
can
por
do.
ejemplo, en
An
qué fecha
analysis is the
tenemos pico de
date
casos.
we have.
Entonces, solo hecho de poder hacer un
So
análisis temporal,
by this
ya podemos ver
time
si en estos
analysis,
últimos 3 años
at
tenemos,
3
por
years,
ejemplo, siempre un
one
pico en el mismo mes, podemos hacer trabajo
can
preventivo
work some
simplemente a
preventive
partir de
work
ese histórico en
from
hacer
the
campañas
historical data
con mayor
with
eficiencia
campaigns with
para
being
anticiparnos
and
a
more
esa
in
fecha que cíclicamente
efficiency that
se
we can
repite
anticipate
el
that
mayor histórico
date
de
where
casos. En fin,
a
esto
large
nos
number of cases
permitiría enriquecernos de
will allow us
información
to
valiosa para tomar
collect
decisiones
very
y
valuable
mejorar
information
de
to make
manera
decisions
íntegra y anticipada
the
los casos de
comprehensive and
bullying y
anticipated
ciberbullying.
management of bullying and cyberbullying.
Entre las acciones que estamos
Among the
tomando
actions that we are
para
taking
reclutar, digamos, y
to
darle difusión
recruit and
de nuestra
promote
propuesta,
our
organizamos
proposals, we
todo
organize
tipo de
all sorts
conferencias,
of
exposiciones,
conferences,
participando en estos hermosos espacios
we
como
participate
nos han
in the wonderful
invitado
the
para
one we're
darle
here
difusión.
today.
Entre ellas hacemos
We
concursos tipo challenge,
organize
competiciones,
challenges or
datatón o hackathon en las
datathons
universidades
at the university
para que los alumnos
so
vayan
that students
sabiendo de este tipo
can
de
learn
herramientas
about this
y
type
a
of
su vez
tool.
tenemos un doble
And
impacto.
we also
Por
have
un lado,
a double
educación técnica,
dual impact, technical
compartiendo
education
cómo la
by
inteligencia
sharing how
artificial nos puede ayudar
artificial intelligence can
y
help
además de esto,
and also
darle difusión a todas las acciones que
spread and
ejecutamos.
communicate all the actions that we
Si
do.
nos quieren contactar, pueden
If you want to contact us,
escribirnos,
you can write
buscarnos
to us.
como
look for us as that
cuarto o
lo
nombre
cuarto,
en LinkedIn,
my name,
coordinar
and
algún tipo
to
de
coordinate something
asistencia o implementar
or
esta
the
herramienta
implement
en las
this
escuelas
tool
de donde lo necesiten.
schools where
Finalmente dejo esta
finally
reflexión.
these three
Nuestro pensamiento es
reflections,
alineado
our
a
thought
que
is alienated
podamos ser.
that we are looking to
Invitamos a
be.
que todos los que están escuchando
All
puedan
of those who are
invertir
listening,
tiempo y esfuerzo
invest
en capacitarse
in effort
en la temática
in
y los que les interesa
and those who are
también es válido
interested
para las
also
cuestiones técnicas como
for
trabajar
technical
con datos.
issues like to work with data.
Recomendamos también
We
tomar
recommend
acción porque muchas
to
veces
take
vemos
action
situaciones y no
because
sabemos
we see
cómo
situations and we don't
participar
know
o
how
ayudar.
to
Por eso es
participate or
importante
help.
que nos
So it's
relacionemos.
important to be
Creemos también, como dice el logo de la
and
organización, que juntos
that
podemos
together
llegar más
we
lejos.
go further, like
Y
the motto of
finalmente
the
que tomemos
Horas
acción
Konu.
de servicio.
Finally, to
Todos
serve,
tenemos mucho
because
para
we
dar
all have a lot to give,
utilizando esta herramienta,
even
ya sea
in
como
using this
creadores,
tool,
los que
creators,
desarrollar,
those who like to
programar
develop
o
program,
dándole
or
difusión, todos
providing
parte
some
para que podamos ver
fusion.
esta
We are part of
implementación,
this
métricas
implementation
en las
and
diversas
obtain metrics
instituciones, colegios
in
y
different
universidades.
institutions, schools,
Así
and
que
universities.
muchísimas gracias a todos
Thank you
por
very
escuchar
much to
y
everyone for
los
listening to me
felicitamos.
and for inviting us.
Muchas gracias, Magister
Thank you
Leonardo
very
López,
much,
por esta
Leonardo
brillante
Lopez, for this
presentación
brilliant
de este proyecto
presentation,
que
for this
representa
project that represents
una propuesta valiosa
a
para
valuable
empezar
proposal to
desde el registro
face
adecuado
from
de
the
casos de
adequate
bullying, ¿no?
registration of bullying cases.
Haciendo un breve resumen,
Making a brief summary,
comentó sobre el
you
proyecto
mentioned
como
the
sistema de
Alertar
analítica de
project
datos
and data
e
analytic
inteligencia
systems with
para
artificial
ayudar a la
intelligence
prevención de riesgos
to
ciudadanos.
help to prevent the risk, and in this case, the risk of bullying.
Como mencioné previamente,
As I mentioned before, it is a valuable tool to face the problem that starts with the commitment indicated by Mr. Leonardo Lopez to approach bullying. So it is very important to continue creating awareness as members of the community and to promote projects such as Alertar to eradicate this bullying issue for boys, girls, and adolescents and young. Thank you very much. Leonardo, we invite you to stay in the room for the continue with active pause, and then we will go to the Q&A session. Now we will go to our active pause, which is important after this learning moment and knowledge exchange. We're going to take a space of our time to relax and to start a mini session of physical exercise. Horas Konu encourages the well-being of those who accompany us in this virtual session. In the next few minutes, we will exercise with an active pause to stay healthy, combat stress, reduce work fatigue, and keep muscles flexible and healthy. Please go ahead with the active pause. There will be no interpretation during the active pause.
Buenos días, buenas tardes. Desde el Organismo Andino de Salud, Convenio Hipólito Unanue, estamos muy felices de invitarte a esta actividad saludable. Para esta actividad necesitas un cuaderno, una agenda que puedas apretar, y vamos hoy a fortalecer el tren superior, es decir, los brazos, los antebrazos, las manos. Así que quiero que tomes un libro, una agenda con firmeza, y vamos a arrancar calentando, haciendo movimientos circulares hacia el frente. Muy bien. Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Perú y Venezuela, hoy trabajando juntos desde el Horas Konu para hacer esta actividad saludable. Ahora remitos, perfecto, a un lado, al otro, y vamos hoy a aprender 3 ejercicios fundamentales para fortalecer nuestros brazos, nuestros hombros. Vamos remando, remando, caliéntele bien esos hombros, esos brazos. 10, 9, 8, 7, si se puede, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 y descansas. Muy bien, perfecto. Primer ejercicio. Quiero que aprietes tu libro, tu agenda con ambas manos con firmeza y lo acerques al pecho. Vamos a imaginar que vamos a romper el libro por la mitad. Entonces a la cuenta de 3 vamos a hacer fuerza hacia afuera con las dos manos, como si fuésemos a romper el libro en 2 pedazos. Agarro a la 1, a las 2, a las 3, fuerza hacia afuera, que tiemble, fuerza hacia afuera, si se puede. Vamos a sostener la fuerza 10 segunditos, vamos. Energía, 10, 9, no se rinda, 8, 7, 6, se siente, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, descansas. Muy bien. ¿Debiste haber sentido esa fuerza en la parte de los brazos? ¿Sí o no? Bueno, seguimos. Aprietas el libro, la agenda y vamos a hacer el mismo ejercicio, pero ahora con el libro no pegado al pecho, sino al frente. ¿Listo? Aprieto. A la 1, a las 2, a las 3, fuerza hacia afuera, fuerza, si se puede. Vamos, 10, 9, 8, 7, si se puede. Vamos, 5, 4, que tiemble, 3, 2, 1 y descanso. Vamos, suelto. Miren que este es un gimnasio portátil, desde la oficina, desde la casa, donde quiera que te encuentres. Muy bien. Tercer ejercicio, vamos a tomar nuestro libro, nuestra agenda, aprieto cerca al pecho, voy a estirar un brazo, mira, estiro un brazo, me voy a imaginar que esto es como un arco y flecha. Entonces aprieto y voy a hacer fuerza con este brazo y con el otro voy a sostener. Agarras a la 1, a las 2, a las 3, fuerza. Hazle el libro, hazlo, si se puede. Vamos, 10, 9, 8, si se puede, que tiemble. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 y descansa. Fortalecimiento del hombro. Es hora de cambiar, así que toma tu libro, tu agenda, vamos para el otro lado. Aprieto con los dedos. Muy bien, a la 1, a las 2, a las 3, fuerza. Que se estiren esos brazos, que se fortalezcan. Los quiero fuertes, invencibles, enérgicos. Vamos, 5, 4, que tiemble, 3, 2, 1 y regresas al centro y sueltas. Muy bien, perfecto. Alcanzamos a hacer un ejercicio más. Quiero que cojas tu libro, lo aprietes muy bien, lo vas a poner encima de tu cabeza. Puedes estirar los brazos o semiflexionarlos. Aprieto de la cuenta de 3, fuerza, separa el libro, ¿listo? A la 1, a las 2, a las 3, fuerza. Separa el libro, si se puede, vamos. Fortalecimiento de los hombros, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 y sueltas y descansas. Muy bien, perfecto. Finalmente vamos a hacer 2 estiramientos para soltar esa tensión de los hombros, de los brazos. Muy bien. Quiero que tomes tu libro, tu agenda, lo envuelves como si fuera una bufanda, un collar alrededor de tu cuello y con el otro brazo haces un poquito de fuerza. Practica estos ejercicios, puedes hacer 2, 3 series en el transcurso de tu día. Tu pausa activa y vas a mantener tus brazos fuertes, enérgicos, saludables. Desde el Organismo Andino de Salud, siempre promoviendo actividades que favorezcan nuestra salud integral, física, emocional, mental y mental. Cambias, perfecto, vuelves, tomas el codo y regresas. Muy bien. Bueno, quedamos fatigados, se sintió, parece fácil, pero tú que estás allá conmigo, se sintió bastante. Entonces, una manera de hacer actividad física fácil desde donde te encuentres. Así que Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Perú y Venezuela, a fortalecer esos brazos hoy a través del Organismo Andino de Salud. Muchísimas gracias por venir a esta actividad saludable. Sigan muy juiciosos desde el Organismo Andino de Salud, trayendo actividad física y pausas activas para todos. Chao, chao.
Bien, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Rob, for sharing this active pause.
Ahora es un espacio para
Now we
también
have a
agradecer a las
space
personas
to
que están
thank
conectadas.
people connected. from the Ministries of Health, Academia, various entities and social organizations from Argentina, Belize, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Cuba, Ecuador, Spain, Guatemala, England, Mexico, Nicaragua, Paraguay, Peru, Uruguay, Venezuela, among others. We have received many greetings. And once again, thank you so much for all the messages that have been sent. Now, we're going to start the dialogue with our speaker. Unfortunately, Mr. Lopez had to leave the meeting because he had to attend another working session. So we have a more space to dialogue with Magister Soto, and this is an honor for the Horas Konu team. So we will ask Teresa Soto to start their video, and during this space, we've been able to share the questions from the audience. We have many questions. The first question is there any relationship between schools and first centers of primary care health that will allow teachers and professors to report suspicious of cases of bullying or cyberbullying? Yes. As I mentioned, we have 375 friendly spaces. We have two inputs. One is that these friendly spaces are many of them located in primary healthcare centers, and the young or adolescents can go there for some advisory on reproductive and sexual health or any other problem that they would like to discuss. In that space, we usually have a psychologist, a nutritionist, and a midwife, but we also have other combined strategies where the health officials visit schools, and there they provide the same services. They work together with the school coexistent spaces. So when schools detect a case, they are sent to the health centers. Now, unfortunately, they are not throughout the country in all the places that we would like because of a budget issue. But the primary healthcare centers are nationwide, so they have this link where they can request help and support, and there's a very coordinated effort between health and education in this area. Important advances, Magister by Magister Soto. And related with this first question, we would like to know if there you have guidelines for that link between the education and the health sector. Well, specifically for the bullying or cyberbullying, we don't have. We have guidelines that I mentioned a minute ago because guideline for detection that we work between sectors through the algorithm that I presented, but we do have joint effort guidelines for health, the healthy control of boys, girls, and adolescents. This is work together between education and health because they work at the school level. It's done children in 6th or 7th grade. So this strategy is applied in schools, and the orientations and the informations are worked together, and they can be found in the webpage of the Ministry of Health, www.minsal.lt, where they have a link for the prevention and control of diseases, and they have all the regulations that we have in this regards. And we have some documents that talk specifically about the healthy control of healthy boys, girls, and adolescents. Thank you very much. Well, cyberbullying is one of the most difficult types of harassment, difficult to identify because technologies are evolving in an unstoppable way. There any initiative in Chile that will allow to improve the strategies for identification of cyberbullying or provide a tracking or follow-up? Yes, in several areas. In fact, the investigative police has a specific effort to detect through social media of pedophiles, of child pornography, etc. Their intersectorial roundtables. We have something called with the fourth frame for the eradication of sexual infantile exploitation. And in that area, it goes through sectors and all the ministries and the police are involved and also allowed. And in December of 2022, a law was enacted that typifies some specific crimes in terms of digital environment. We have increased the sentences for exploitation of the client, quote unquote, and intermediary. And we have also visualized this self-management through to some digital environments that allow exploitation in some cases. So that can be visualized. So there are different strategies that are allowed prevention and also crime prosecution, because although we may have prevention, but once the crime has been committed, the police and the attorney office can prosecute this crime and expose it. So there's an intersectorial effort with the Ministry of Education, with the National Institute of Youth. Thank you for this valuable response that reflects the intersectoriality in Chile to approach this issue. And a final question, but we have many others among the ones that have been sent by the parliament due to time. This is going to be the last question. Due to the importance that the caregivers are updated with new information and communication technologies that you have shown in your presentation, their awareness and training interventions that are being offered by the Ministry of Health or other sectors? Yes, we have spaces in schools, specifically in schools, that through the coexistent school committees, we had a management annual plan. So the person in charge of school coexistence is becoming aware. And I don't know if the correct word is to advise, but some support to parents and tutors to the responsible use of technology, because we frequently see that children age 3 are using cell phones. So to have more responsibility of the tutors on whether children mention this moves very quickly and there's parental control, and despite that, advertisement is greater. So schools are doing this intervention for parents with support, but in addition, there should be this social, a greater community network. It's not just a problem of education, problem of health, it's a social problem that affects all countries, and that the organized crime are 10 steps ahead of us. So that is where we're talking, and they're already generating something quicker. That is why this needs to be in country, and don't need to be involved
valiosas
Thank you very much
reflexiones,
for these
Magister
valuable
Teresa Soto.
responses.
Agradecemos las preguntas
We thank
realizadas por
you
el
for your
público.
questions.
Lamentablemente
We
no
were
alcanzamos
not
a
able to
responderlas
answer
todas por el tiempo.
all,
Sin embargo, vamos a
but
tenerlas
we
en
will take
cuenta
them
para
into
las próximas
consideration to
sesiones
define the
y
topics
seminarios
of the
de
next
estos webinars.
webinars.
Valoramos su
We value
participación
your
e interés.
participation and
Para
interest.
cerrar este
To close this
espacio
space
de
of
preguntas y
Q&A,
respuestas, le
I will
pediría
ask
hoy a
you
Magíster Teresa
to
Soto
leave
que deje
us
un mensaje final
a
en
final
1 minuto.
message in 1 minute, Mrs. Otto.
Creo que el único mensaje
I
que
think
yo
that the
a
only
todos
message that I
están
could give to
conectados
everyone
es que nos
who's been
preocupemos
here
de nuestros
is
niños,
that
niñas y
we should
adolescentes,
worry about
la
our
mayor
children and
cantidad de
adolescents
señales, aunque sean
when they
básicas,
show signals,
porque eso
even
solo
basic
nos permite
signals,
salvarles la
because
vida.
that allows
Muchas
us to save
veces
them,
no nos damos
save their
cuenta,
lives.
no
Many
nos damos
times we don't
cuenta
realize,
cuando ya ellos
and we
toman
see
una
when this is too late,
determinación
and they
muy
took that
dolorosa que podría
determination
costar
as
la
it
vida
can
de
be
ellos.
extremely painful as
Entonces,
taking their own life.
invitarles a todos
So
que
just
todos
to
nos
ask
preocupemos,
all of you
todos nos preocupemos
to
por
be
nuestros
interested
niños
in
y adolescentes.
worry
Como
about
hacíamos
our
mención,
boys,
la
girls, and
doctora Calle en un
adolescents.
principio,
As
son
Dr. Kaye
nuestro
mentioned,
presente y
they
nuestro
are
futuro.
not only the
Lo que
present,
podemos
but also the
salvarles
future.
la vida a ellos.
We need to save their lives.
Muchas gracias, Magíster Teresa
Thank you,
Soto. Reiteramos
Magister
el
Teresa Soto.
agradecimiento a las
We
excelentes,
reiterate
a las
our
excelentes
thanks for the
ponencias
excellent
del día
presentations
de hoy.
today.
Recibimos
We receive
muchas
many
felicitaciones,
congratulations
muchas
on our social
felicitaciones.
networks.
Muchas gracias,
Thank you very
doctor
much,
Samir
Dr. Samir
Duya, que nos está
Duya,
viendo de manera asincrónica,
who is watching us
la Magíster
asynchronously,
Teresa Soto,
Magister Teresa Soto,
Leonardo
Magister
López,
Leonardo Lopez,
a todos los
all the
participantes
participants,
del equipo del Horas CONU
to
y a
the
todos
Horas
los
Konu
que
team, and to all the
participan
people
en
involved
esta
in this
actividad de
activity
interaprendizaje.
of learning.
En este momento ya
At this
hacemos
moment,
el cierre de nuestro
since
seminario
we are
virtual.
closing
Cedo la
our virtual
palabra a
seminary,
la
I yield
doctora
the floor to
Marisela Malki
Dr. Marisela
para el cierre
Malki
de este webinar
for
en
the closing
nombre
of
del
this webinar
Organismo
on
Andino de
behalf of
Salud,
the Andean Health
Convenio
Organization,
Hipólito Unanue.
Hipólito
Adelante,
Unanue
señora
Agreement.
doctora.
Go ahead, dear Dr. Kai.
Muchísimas gracias. Lo primero es
Thank you very
agradecer
much.
a cada
First of
uno de
all, I
nuestros
would like to thank
ponentes
each one of our
que
speakers
nos han dado su
who
tiempo
has
y
given us
dedicación
their
para tratar este
time
tema tan importante,
and experience to
este
talk
tema
about this
del
important topic,
bullying, del acoso, del
bullying, harassment, and
ciberacoso. Nos
cyberbullying.
han dado un marco
You have
conceptual
given us a
importante y las
important
modalidades
conceptual framework
de los mismos.
of the different
Y
modalities.
nos han dicho que definitivamente la
Mentioned that
inteligencia artificial
the
generativa está siendo
generative
un
artificial
potencial
intelligence
importantísimo para
being
nuestro
a very
país y
important
que es
progress
tecnología y que
in
debiera ser
terms of
usado
technology
siempre
and should always be
positivamente, ¿no?
used in a positive
Realmente,
manner.
lamentablemente, también recordemos
Unfortunately, it
que genera
becomes
muchos riesgos
in generating
para
a lot of
nuestra
risk
población más vulnerable, como son
for the
nuestras
most
niñas y
vulnerable
niños
populations as
adolescentes.
our boys, girls, and
Lo
adolescents.
importante es saber que
It is
haber
important
escuchado la presentación
to have
de
heard the
Chile,
presentation from
la
Chile,
posibilidad de que
the
habiendo este problema
possibility
como lo
that
hay en
by
todos los países,
having this problem
ya
in every
está
country,
generándose políticas
they are already
para su
generating
abordaje,
policies
para su
for their
mitigación y
mitigation,
desde el lado de salud
and
continuar
from
instalando
the
a
side of
de
health
manera preventiva desde
to
los
do
servicios
it,
primarios de
manage it
salud,
as
el enfoque
preventive
familiar
with primary
y
healthcare with a
comunitario.
family and community approach.
Definitivamente tenemos como Estado y que lo
We,
están
as a
haciendo
state,
allí, generar y
we
promover
have to generate and
lugares
promote
seguros. Lo que los
safe
chicos
spaces.
siempre han buscado y
The
necesitado y
children
comentado
always
es
are told
esto,
us
¿no?
that
Tener
that's
lugares
what they're
seguros
looking for,
de desarrollar.
to have
Y es obligación
places that are
de los
safe
que
for them
tenemos la
to
posibilidad
thrive,
a contribuir a que se pueda
and we
lograr.
should contribute
Lo
it to
importante,
achieve
se ha
this.
dicho, es
You've
la
mentioned the
educación
importance
temprana y
of
la atención
early
integral.
uh,
Y hay herramientas,
attention
nos ha
and
mostrado
comprehensive
nuestro último
approach.
expositor,
There are tools,
esta
like the last speaker
herramienta
told us,
Data Rock, que de
that
manera
that, that are rock
libre los chicos pueden
that
acceder,
children
pero que
can
nos debe dar
access
oportunidad
and
para
will give us the opportunity
efectivamente identificar
to identify.
y nos mencionó algo importante,
And you
debemos
mentioned something
ser,
important. We need
debemos estar
to be,
detrás de
we
ellos,
need to be,
capacitarnos para contribuir
we
a
need to
mejorar
train
la
and
posibilidad de
improve
atención y de
the
abordaje de estos problemas,
possibility of dealing
a
with this
tomar
issue
acción,
and
importantísimo,
to
porque
important to
eso se
take
trata,
action because that's the
identificar lo
idea,
antes posible y
to
evitar esos
identify as soon as
casos tan
possible and
dolorosos que
prevent
nos
those
han
painful
mencionado y que
cases that have been
desgraciadamente
mentioned
los hay en todas partes y
that
no
will
los vemos.
probably
Y
them all
servir.
over the place.
No
Sure.
debemos o no podemos permitir que
We
nuestros
cannot
niños
allow our
tengan, como se decía al
children,
comienzo,
as it was mentioned at the
que
beginning,
estar evitando,
to be
evadiendo,
avoiding
pensando
and
las maneras de
thinking on
repente no
ways
acudir a
of
sus
not
estudios
going to
porque
school.
realmente es allí donde ellos son
That's where they
acosados,
are
son
harassed
dañados y
and
eso,
harmed,
ese ambiente debería ser uno de
and
los
that environment
lugares
should
más
be one of
seguros.
the most
Para
best
el Organismo
places.
Andino de Salud es
For the
una de
Andean Health
nuestras
Organization,
prioritarias,
this
como
is a
ya
priority
la
line of
mayoría
action,
conoce,
as most of
trabajar en
you
el
know,
cuidado de niñas, niños,
working in
adolescentes
boys, girls, and
y en
adolescents,
la salud mental de ellos
and
y
in their mental health. And
y de toda a través del para de problemas. En esta ocasión nos convocó lo que es el acoso, pero creo que
but
ya
I think
hemos mencionado, se ha reiterado,
we've
el
mentioned
abordaje debe ser
the
integral,
approach has to be
integral y además
complete
multisectorial. Hemos
and
visto
also multisectoral.
tener que hacerse
We think that
una integración, una articulación,
we need to
una
have
coordinación entre, por
coordination
ejemplo, Ministerio de
between, for
Educación,
example, the
Ministerio de Salud,
Ministry of
para
Health and the
acompañar
Ministry
a
of
los niños
Education to accompany
niños
with
a salir de esa
this
situación,
boy or girl
a
to
un lugar
overcome this
seguro.
situation and be in a safe place.
Entonces, creo que todos con de esta forma y lo otro
So
que también se mencionó y que nosotros
something
también
else that was
impulsamos
mentioned
bastante es
and that we
acompañar,
promote
acompañar a que
accompany
ese
them,
uso de la tecnología, los
accompany
niños
so that the
nunca deben
use of
estar solos
technology,
para evitar,
because children should never be alone.
uno, dar información, otro,
Want to provide information
empezar a
or
ser acosados de las
to start to
múltiples
being
formas que nos
harassed
han
in
relatado
several ways that
y que
you've
seguramente
been
seguirán
presented,
apareciendo nuevas formas.
and we'll
Esa es la
fully see
responsabilidad
new
como
ways of
padres, como
harassment.
adultos, como
We as
educación,
parents, as
Estado,
adults, as
estar
organizations,
siempre
it is that
protegiendo a estos
to
niños.
protect.
Con eso quiero reiterar el
With that,
agradecimiento a
once
nuestros
again, thank you to our
excelentes
excellent
ponentes en esta
speakers
ocasión, igualmente por la
and
organización y el
for
desarrollo
the
de esto,
organization, and
a Ruby,
to
a
Ruby,
Danitza, a
Danitza, Rob,
Yadira, todos
Yadira,
los que han permitido
and all
que se desarrolle
who have made this
este webinar
seminar
y a
possible,
todo nuestro público que
and to
siempre
all of
nos,
our
nos
audience
acompaña
that
semana
week
a
after
semana,
week follows us,
invitarlos
and to
al
invite you
próximo jueves y decirles que el
next
próximo
Thursday
jueves
and tell you that we're going to
estamos
talk.
cambiando de horario solo por ese día. Tendremos
We will have
a las 8 de la noche
at
un
8
webinar
p.m.
relacionado a
a
hipertensión.
webinar
Ya
regarding
estaremos
hypertension.
comunicando. Muchísimas gracias
Thank you
nuevamente.
so much.
Un abrazo a todos. Gracias.
Thank you.